All right, everyone. So thank you for coming to this second night of my 2-night webinar series. Last night we talked about incorporating cumulative review in the 3 through 5 classroom through the lens of morphology. So if you are a reading interventionist or an admin or someone like that, then you can definitely go check that out. If you are a second grade teacher, you might want to go check that one out too, because by the end of second grade, we can really start incorporating some of those morphology aspects. So I decided to talk about incorporating cumulative review simply because it's the thing that I don't see a lot of. So what I will often see is this. We introduce a phonics skill on Monday and we teach it beautifully. We're explicit. I do, you do, we do, you do, like it's beautiful. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a lot of times what I see is just practicing that same skill. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to help you to see how you can change just a single focus on a skill of the week into, yes, let's introduce that skill, that explicit phonics instruction that we know is important. But then for the rest of the week, how can we then make sure that we're reviewing all of the things that we've taught our kids? So in case you don't know who I am, welcome. My name is Savannah Campbell. If you've heard this speech before, I'm sorry. I am a K through 5 reading specialist. I am about to start my 13th year teaching at the school that I went to as a child. And I've said it before and I will say it every single time. I feel honored and I feel called to get to work with the kids at this school because it's like looking at a tiny little Savannah and helping them grow into whatever they want to be. And I was extraordinarily lucky as a student because learning to read was easy. So I look at these kids for whom they're growing up in adverse circumstances. They have so much trauma and so much going on, and learning to read is difficult, and it just doesn't feel fair. And so I work to help level that playing field. And I especially feel called doing it at the school that I went to because it's just become a part of me and part of who I am. In case you don't know, I'm also one of the co-hosts and co-presenters of Unlocking SOAR. You can follow us at Unlocking SOAR on Instagram. We are a virtual professional development that we offer 3 times a year. And we actually just launched a call for proposals today. So if you are someone that loves presenting, then I would encourage you to please sign up to be a presenter. And here's the deal. Every time we have really good presentations that we simply can't choose everyone. So if you had proposed something before and you weren't chosen, please know that it wasn't because we don't think you're amazing. Sometimes there's just so many. So I encourage you to apply again because we're always looking for incredible educators to share their wealth of knowledge. All right, off my little Unlocking SOAR soapbox. Tonight, I want us to really talk about just a couple of things. I want us to understand why cumulative review is important. And then the rest of this time, we're just going to talk about ways that we can review reading and review spelling. So these are the steps for my phonics lesson. Excuse me, I'm going to cough real quick. No, I'm not. Okay, these are the steps for my phonics lesson. So keep in mind that I am a reading interventionist. I have 30 minutes a day with my students. If I were still in the classroom, I would do the exact same thing. I just might modify it somewhat. So for example, the more that we're learning about phonemic awareness, we know that it's really not something that should be disconnected from text. So more and more, I'm starting to merge this phonemic awareness step in with the other steps. So that alone gives me 1 to 2 minutes. I'm going to talk about symbol to sound, but like writing ABCs. So that might be something that you do in small group as opposed to whole group so that you can then see what the children, how the children are forming their letters. Heart words, I do not take a long amount of time teaching heart words because really all we are doing is we are trying to teach them how to map the sounds in an irregular spelled word to the symbols that make up that word. And so I really just spend like 2 minutes on it, but then guess what? We review and we review and we review. You're going to notice, though, that about a third of my lesson every day is focused on cumulative review. And there are going to be some times where actually about half of my lesson are cumulative review. So I would love to know in the chat right now, in the Zoom chat and in the Facebook chat, do you currently do any cumulative review? Is it something that has really even popped up on your radar, or you're really not sure how to get going with it? And I'm going to stop for just a minute. Sometimes there's a bit of a lag. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking. There we go. Oh my gosh, someone said they had 35 minutes of cumulative review. That's incredible. Wow. Oh, great. It's built into our lessons and my centers. Yes, yes, yes. Every day. Oh, I love that I'm hearing so many people do cumulative review. So for those of you that are already doing it, hopefully I can just give you a new spin to it. Nice. Yes, yes. Yeah, Kathleen, I was OG trained too, so I'm sure that this is looking very familiar with you. Good. I'm loving to see that we are all kind of on the same page with it. Oh, I love someone said they are hoping to be more intentional with it because I think that's kind of what I did too before in the past. I was like, yeah, I do cumulative review, but I wasn't very intentional with it. So hopefully this will give us some intentionality. So at the end of the day, there are so many things that are put on our plates as teachers. So I always want us to stop and ask, are my children reading and spelling enough to reach automaticity? It boils down to that. Are they being exposed to enough words in print? Are they being asked to spell enough so that they can become automatic with the patterns? Because this teaching it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then forgetting about it and moving on to the next skill, that is not going to help all of our learners to reach automaticity. We know that for many students, they will be able to orthographically map words between 1 and 4 exposures. But for our most needy students and for our struggling students, it could literally take hundreds of exposures to a word until they orthographically map it and they can effortlessly and automatically retrieve it. So when we are doing cumulative review, we are hoping that we are preparing these students with enough exposure so that they can reach the point of automaticity. And that's the key with it. So let's talk about some different reading practices. And while I'm talking about this, I'm also going to share a Dropbox link with you. So I have created a Dropbox link. And if you were here last night, it's actually a different one. I've given y'all a different freebie this time because I love you. So let me grab the link real quick for everyone. In the Dropbox link, what you are going to find is a link to all of the resources that I'm talking about tonight, but I'm also giving y'all for free my word chains, which I will talk about later. So those are in there. And then I also have a blank fluency grid in there. So when you download that link, you just click it and it's going to automatically download the files for you. Okay. So I wanted to give that to y'all now so that you would have it as I'm talking about it. So there's 5 different ways that I review reading. I do not do all of these every day. I will tell you which ones I love the most. But yes, I do not do all of them every day. So sound decks, I certainly do every day. But then I kind of choose, are we going to read from our decodable folder, do our review decks, fluency grids, or games? And that's where we're going to look at right now, the things we're going to look at. So sound decks, I heard that a lot of you were Orton Gillingham trained, so you're already aware of what a sound deck is. But basically what a sound deck is, and this is how I always explain it, it's like a souped up alphabet deck, right? So instead of just flashing the ABCs, like I did with my 4-year-old today, by the way, she knew 24 out of 26 of her letters. So instead of just having the alphabet, we're going to include all of the graphemes or phonograms that we have taught to our students. So a phonogram can be a single grapheme, like a single like sound symbol correspondence, or it can be like ENC, where it's a couple of sounds. But so let me show you an example. And this is absolutely free. I will send you the link to it. But all you have to do for your sound deck, and this is how I start every single day, every single one of my lessons, we start with a sound deck. If you were here last night, you saw the morpheme sound deck. It's the exact same thing. So you will see that this has all of the different graphemes that you might teach to your students. You have vowel teams, you have welded sounds, you have syllable division rules if you teach that, gentle Cindy. I do include blends on mine. I know that that is a hot topic, but I do include my blends on mine if you want them. So what you will do, unless you're in kindergarten, so if I was a first grade teacher, I'm going to start with the ABCs. And all you need to do is save this on your computer and then pull the bottom slide right here to the top. Delete the instructions. And what you're going to do is you are just going to pull over the letters or sounds that you have taught them or graphemes that you have taught them. So at the beginning of the year, it might just be the ABCs, but we don't want them to only do this in alphabetical order. So make sure that you mix it up somewhat. So, and then once you have done this, all you are going to do is display it. And as you're going through it, kids, oh, sorry, Lacey, it's at 7:15 tonight because I wasn't in charge of putting my daughter to bed this evening. So all they would do is say like, t, o, or z, o, or ah, d. So you can kind of see how that would go. But then here's the cool thing. So say after this, I taught my students digraphs, right? All I would have to do is drag this card up, and all of a sudden my deck has been changed. If you had been trained in Orton Gillingham, you might have seen this with physical card decks. And those are fantastic if you're only working one-on-one or with a small group of kids. But if you are doing this whole group or you have multiple groups, I highly suggest that you use the PowerPoint, because otherwise you're just going to have cards everywhere. So let me go ahead and drop a link for the sound decks. This is free for the sound decks into the chat. And please let me know if you have any questions while I'm doing it. I do have a printable version, but it is the PowerPoint version that's the free one, which I actually think is the better one. That's the one that I use. So there's the post for both of the sound decks. And I'm checking to make sure that there's no questions. All right. So start your lesson with a sound deck. That is one way that you can incorporate cumulative review at like the sound level, right? So I'm always thinking about building from like the smallest unit to the largest unit. So from the sound to the word to the sentence to the connected text level. All right, now decodable folders. If you have been following me for a while, you know how much I love a decodable folder. That QR code right there will take you to my blog post about decodable folders, but I'm also going to go ahead and share what they look like with you right now. So I'm going to give everybody just a minute to scan with their phone, and keep in mind this is recorded. So decodable folders have changed my instruction, and I don't say that lightly. It has become such a large point of my instruction that in my school we literally have decodable folders for all students K through 3. My principal, who's an amazing human, she has looked at our scope and sequence. We've looked at our scope and sequence. We've printed off decodables for every single skill in our curriculum, and then we've made folders for our teachers. It's fantastic because now at any point in the day, say you have an extra minute, okay, kids, I want you to pull out your decodable folders. Sorry, guys. So we have purchased Emily Gibbons decodable folders. Does anybody use those? One second. Eric, could you get me a cough drop too? Sorry. We all have this like weird dry cough in my house. Okay, so Emily Gibbons from the Literacy Nest, she has incredible decodables. So this is an example of one from hers. This is one of hers. I really love them, but this is how I set up my decodable folders. So say I'm going to teach digraphs coming up soon, right? Like I know that I'm teaching digraphs. So what I would do is I would grab all of my text about digraph. I'm going to copy them so that I have like a bit of text. And then I'm going to put them inside of their folders. That way I'm not copying decodables every single day of the week. So this is an actual decodable folder that was one of my students from last year. And some of them are missing, but I'm just going to kind of show you. Yes, Teresa, I'll share the QR code again in just a moment. So what I do though is this. Remember, I talked about starting from the smallest unit to the biggest unit. So I don't jump right into decodable text when I'm teaching a skill. I will start with words in isolation, sentences, and then I move into the text. So I will pop a link into the chat for those decodable word lists and sentences. They were really something that I had made for a scaffold for my students. Anything that I'm sharing with you this evening that is not free, so there's plenty of free stuff coming your way, but anything that's not free, I have put in my store 20% off because I know how hard you guys work. Okay, so every time my kiddos read a story, they get a sticker, right? So if you just ask kids to pull out a decodable folder and to read, they're going to get bored really fast. So I give them a sticker each time they read it. Once they get 5 stickers, I encourage them to retire it. But you can see from this that has 6 stickers in it. Some kids find comfort in starting with a text that's very familiar with them. And so sometimes like I'll have kids who have like 20 or 30 stickers on one, and I'm like, okay, you can read it one time and then move on to something else. And what I will do occasionally, maybe every month or every 2 months, is I will go in and anything that has 5 stickers, I pull it out, I staple it, I send it home, so that we're always cycling through text and we're always starting to incorporate more difficult ones. So this is my decodable folders, and they are absolutely just the best thing I could have done for my kids because it's so easy to pull them out to give them that practice that they need. Okay, the QR code is back on the screen now. I'm going to leave it there for about 5 seconds and move on. I love that some of you have started using decodable folders already. That's fantastic. Oh, and what's really cool is like word of our decodables has gotten around. And so now other schools in the district also want to do it for their kids, which I just think is fantastic that there's like almost like this countywide initiative to get decodable text into students' hands. So another thing that I do with my students is review decks. A review deck is simply a PowerPoint. A review deck is simply a PowerPoint that has words that are the skills that we have taught our students already. I have a couple of questions about decodable folders, so I'm going to back it up one more minute. Someone asked, do I ever send decodable folders for practice at home? And I'm really glad you asked that. The answer is yes. I don't particularly care for homework, especially for kids who struggle. I think it's very unfair that a child has to go to school for 7 hours a day and struggle all day just to go home and struggle some more. But I will often have parents who want something. And what I will simply do is I will make a copy of their exact decodable folder. I will put it in a new folder and I will go ahead and send stickers home with them. And I will tell them, you know, let me know when you need more stickers. Let me know when you need more text. So I will absolutely do it. I don't send home the original copy until the end of the year, but at the end of the year, they get so excited to take that folder home. Also, in about 2 weeks, if you go to Walmart, folders should start being about 10 cents. I will go and literally buy hundreds of folders from Walmart when they put them on sale for 10 cents. And so I can get 100 of them for 10 bucks. So try to catch those sales when they're there. And then somebody else asked, would I start them right from the beginning of the year and first? Yes, we actually start mid-year kindergarten. So you can start with some CBC ones. All right, let's go back to review decks. So I want to show you an example of a review deck. Oh man, of course I don't have the review deck saved, just when you think. So we're going to go to Roanoke real quick. Let's take it back to Roanoke, y'all. So this is an example of a review deck, and you can see that this one was actually for more themes, but a review deck is simply a way for you to review skills that you have taught. I see I have some more questions about decodable text, and I'll come back to that. So let me show you how you can make your own customized review deck. So I do it in PowerPoint. You just need a blank presentation. Now, you could simply start typing in your words. Say you did CVCA, you could do SAD. And this is how I started my life. I was like making these every single week. And then you could display it like that. Or you could get the ones that I have made that have made my life so much easier. I have made 16 PowerPoints that have over 1,700 words already done for them. So say I've taught CVC words and now I'm moving into digraphs. All I'm going to do is go to Home, New Slide, reuse slides. You can also just copy and paste slides, but I go to home, new slide, reuse slide. And then you can see I have right here all of these PowerPoints full of words that I have already made. So I said that I was teaching CVC, all right? So they're over here. I'm just gonna hit the CVC words that I wanna add. So I've got A, got some I words, O. Just make sure you click keep source formatting, otherwise it just shows up as a blank picture. I'll show you. If you don't click keep source formatting, it shows up like that. So you literally just go to the side. I'm saying literally a lot. I'm gonna stop. And then I said I was teaching CVC and digraphs. So then I'm gonna go ahead and browse for some new slides. I'm gonna go to my digraphs PowerPoint, and I have all of the digraphs already laid out for you. Yes, Kelly, I do have a bundle for these and the morphology ones. The morphology ones are listed on the video I did last night, and I'm about to drop the link for you guys for this one. So after I've added them, remember, we don't want them to just practice one thing at a time. Like if I just give them short A, short A, short A, short A, they're quickly gonna catch on that they're all short A. So all you have to do, sorry, sometimes I go a little fast. There are these little 4 dots down at the bottom of your PowerPoint screen. That is the slide sorter. So that just helps you to see all the slides. And then you just move them around. So last year I had 9 groups and I had 9 review decks. If you have been Orton Gillingham trained and you have the physical copies of the review decks, you know how cumbersome it is to update those decks. And I was finding that I wasn't being efficient with my review decks because I simply didn't have the time to do all of it, right? Like I didn't have the time to put new words in and take old words out. Now I can take old words out and put new words in with just a click. And it has made my life so easy. And all I do is I save it for whatever group I'm at. So say you're doing this whole group, just save it as review deck. But if you're doing it for small group, you can save group 1 review deck, group 2 review deck, group 3 review deck. And it's just, the amount of time that this has saved me is just mind-boggling. I still have stacks of review decks that need to be sorted and put away because it's just become so overwhelming. Yes, so someone has also asked if I can share those first 2 links again. That Dropbox link that I shared with y'all, it has all of these listed in it, and I'm putting the review decks in here right now. Also, just a heads up, my husband and I share an office, and like I said, we both have coughs, so if you hear him coughing, I'm sorry, it's just life right now. All right, so as I'm switching to the next slide, somebody had another question about the decodable folders. They said, do I listen to a child read the decodable for them to earn a sticker? I love this question. So no, I don't have to listen to them do the whole thing. I always tell them, I know what fake reading looks like. And for the most part, I just have them whisper read, like they'll be like, and I can tell whether or not they're really reading. Sometimes you just, if you're doing it whole group, you just got to take them at their word, I think. So if a kid is saying that they're done with a text after 12 seconds, I'll be like, that's great. Now you're going to read it to me again, and then you'll get your sticker. But for the most part, they've been really good about it. And when you're in small group, it's a lot easier. Sometimes I have them whisper read to them to a partner, and what I'll do is I'll give them stickers, and they love it. Like I'll give them stickers and I will let them go to a different part of the room, and one person listens while the other reads, and then they'll give them a sticker when they're done, and then they'll flip flop, and it works beautifully. Until it doesn't. All right, let's talk about fluency grids now. So fluency grids are simply this. They are a way that we can help our children to have the exposures necessary to orthographically map patterns. We are simply trying to give them more exposure to the skills that we have taught them. And I first heard about fluency grids in Kilpatrick's Equipped for Reading Success. And it was the kind of thing where I was like, all right, I'll try it. You know, I'll try anything once. And then I started doing them and I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, these really work. in the Dropbox folder that I shared with you, and I will share that Dropbox folder with you again, I've included a blank fluency grid just in case you want to make some for yourself. But I also have a fluency grid product, and I think it has maybe 160 fluency grids in it. I will drop a link to that for y'all. But I'm also going to show y'all how I use them. And if you were here last night, you know I also use fluency grids with morphology with a little bit of a different focus. Okay. So this fluency grid is focused on digraphs. And the first row, I always have us do it together. So I might do it a couple of ways. If we're just reviewing, we might just do a choral read together. If it is something that I'm doing with an introduction of a skill, I'll probably do an echo read. So an echo read is where I would read the word, shut, and ask them to read it. Choral read, we would do it together. But what you're gonna find is this. You're going to find kiddos who are starting at the beginning of the row, and these words are the same. It's the same 7 words. Oh, there's my lacy bird, my little pups. They're the same words, just in a different order. And what you will find is that at the beginning, kids are going to be saying shut, ash, cash, ed, shed, esh, mesh. But then by the time you get to the final row, they truly are saying mesh, cash, hash, shut, shed, mush, shush. And it's pretty incredible to get to see them. The way I will use these for review is if there's a skill that I know is still kind of troublesome for my students, I will pull them out for that. I use these a lot of times for when I'm introducing a new rule. These are great for practicing rules that they may not have had mastery on yet. So I sent you guys the link for them already. If you start and you find that the kids find this just overwhelming, right? There's a couple of things that you can do. You can cut them in strips, right? And just hand each kid a strip. You can fold it like an accordion so that they only see one row at a time. And another thing that you can do is just take a marker or pen, and since there's 6 rows, you could just number them and have them roll a dice. And whatever they roll for the dice, they have to read that particular row. So someone asked if the kids always read the row with at least one other student. Nope, I have them do this alone most of the time. Most of the reading that I have my kids do in intervention is whisper reading to themselves, but we do partner reading sometimes too. In a small group, children are often reading over each other. So the way I will try to mitigate that is I will say, okay, I need you to read the white rows, and then somebody else reads the gray rows. I know some people who will put the fluency grids into their decodable folders, but I like to keep my decodable folders just the words, sentences, and passages because it gets really full really fast. You could also use binders, but I mean, binders cost a lot of money, and so that's why I stuck with the folders. All right, and once again, we're not doing all of these at the same time, right? So sound decks every single day. Decodable folders, honestly, I do every single day, but the way I do it almost every single day, the way I do it is when I'm introducing a new rule, I'll say this, okay, after you read the passage for the skill we've just learned about, say we just did Carl, I want you to go back and reread anything else in your folder that we've already read before. So that's how I incorporate that every day. But I normally do the review decks after I do the sound decks and the fluency grids when my kids really just need that extra practice. I want to talk about games. I love games just as much as everybody. I've made games. I have games that I use all the time. I'm going to give you a link for games. Games are a great engagement tool. However, we have to keep the end goal in mind. And the end goal is for children to be able to read, right? Like to be able to read connected text. So if we're doing games all the time that are only practicing isolated skills, then we are risking not giving them the exposure that they need for connected text to become successful readers. So I will drop some game links. I just wanted to give you guys kind of that caveat that like, okay, we shouldn't be doing games all the time in small group. I think once you have taught a game, if you then want to start incorporating those games into centers, that is a fantastic idea. My board games and my decodable sentences games are all played like the same way. And I did that so that like once you learn how to play one game, you can play any of them. And I made the decodable sentences games because I realized that every single game that I had only practiced reading at the sound or the word level. I didn't have anything that practiced it at the sentence level. So I do have a free CVC decodable game. If you go to my store, it's there for free. Okay, now let's talk about some spelling practices. 3 spelling practices that I want to talk to you about. And guess what? You'll have access to all 3 of these things for free. Okay. Basic dictation. We cannot overestimate the importance of being able to write on a piece of paper. So this is an actual student that I had this year. Their parent was kind enough to allow me to use their writing. What I do is I have my kids write the alphabet lowercase. 97% of the letters that we are writing are going to be lowercase. Our children need to master lowercase letters. We all know those kids who are writing uppercase D's in the middle of the word because they simply don't know how to write a lowercase d. So if we do A through M on the top line and then N through Z on the next line, we have 13 letters on the top and 13 letters on the bottom, and it breaks up LMNOP. So what I have my kids do is I have them write their alphabet, and then we write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be a perfect way to transition from just focusing on the skill of the week to focusing on everything that you've learned. So say you had just learned about CK. Maybe you have them do 2 CK words, K versus CK, and then the other 3 words are going to be a review of things that you've already taught. So you can see here, I was reviewing CK, I was reviewing past tense, ing, these nasal sounds at the end, and magic E. And here, because remember, we're trying to review everything, she wrote thicking. So think about this. This is the danger of only practicing one rule at a time. She was automatically thinking, since this was a CK, that this had to be a CK. So what I did was I told her, I had her say the sounds for me. And as she said the sounds in the word thinking, I drew lines, right? E, n, k, ing. I think I kept NK together for her. And you're going to notice she kept ING together, but she got it this time. So that's a strategy that I'll use a lot of times. If a student is spelling a word wrong, I will have them tell me the sounds in the word. And as they're telling me the sounds, I will draw a little line to represent it. Okay. Oh, I kept ING together because it's a morpheme. Okay. Sound symbol mapping. This is not in tonight's Dropbox, but if you go to last night's Dropbox, you get all of these for free. So I know that a lot of you have done phoneme graphing mapping. Kelly, I see your question. I'm going to come back to it at the end, okay, just so I can keep my momentum going. I'm copying it down for myself. And I think that this is something that makes review so easy to do, right? So with phoneme graphing mapping, all you're doing is this. You are having the children say a word, then they're writing the word using the boxes, one sound at a time. So each box represents one sound, no matter how many letters are in that sound. So, instead of practicing all of this week's spelling words, why don't you practice 3 or 4 of this week's spelling words? And then the remaining of the remaining words could be review words that you have done before. So you can see we're not talking about shifting everything you've done to something brand new. Instead, let's tweak what we are already doing so that we can incorporate some more of this review. I'm not going to belabor this too much unless we have questions, because I feel like this is something that I've talked about a lot. If you don't have these sheets, go to last night's webinar and the link to the Dropbox is in the captions. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is word chains. I love word chains. The kids love word chains. They are so engaging. So a word chain is simply this. You start with one word like cap, and then this is the verbiage I use. I will say, okay, I want you to change one sound in cap to make it the word cape, and they would have to make it an E. Then I would say, change one sound in cape to make it say tape. Change one sound in tape to make it say tap. A lot of times I do this on dry erase boards so that they can just erase each sound, but you can also do it on paper. So I want you to be careful when you're doing this though. I don't want you to say change the first letter in cape to make it say tape, because then you're taking some of the phonemic awareness work away from them. Instead, I want you to say change one sound in cape to make it say tape. And if they struggle, that's when you can go ahead and tell them where it is. Let me show you the word chains that you have in case you do not already have these. This is what one of the things that's in your Dropbox. I think there's 50 of them, 59, 56. So it starts with as simple as closed syllable A, O, and E. I'm actually working on making some more that are going to be mixed. We have mixed closed syllable, floss rule, digraphs, blends, and and it just keeps going and going and going. I recommend you print this off, keep it near you, and then every week choose a day of the week where you're going to do a word chain with your kids. All right. I spent like 30 minutes talking about reading and 5 minutes talking about spelling, but they're both equally important. So at the end of the day, I just want you to remember, are our children reading and spelling enough to reach automaticity? Are we giving them practice every single day on all the skills that we have taught them in order for them to be able to know these words effortlessly and automatically? I am going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to open the floor for some questions. While I am waiting to see if anyone has questions, I'm going to drop the Dropbox link again. Remember, anything that I have not given you for free is going to be 20% off in my store. So hopefully you can get them a little bit easier. And let me drop the Dropbox link again. So Kelly said, just to make sure I understand, for fluency, I'm actually going to stop. I'm going to stop recording. So if you're watching this recorded, bye.